Okay, I'm going to get started this morning by welcoming all of you guys. Good morning. Sawadee Kap. Sawadee Kap. Welcome to those of you guys here at the temple and those of you guys joining us online. Welcome to everyone. We're going to start this morning with a meditation to help you guys learn meditation and train your mind. I start with the chants. I see some of you guys here have the daily chants. We chant these chants as a way to ease the mind into meditation and get more benefit out of the meditation. This isn't a rite or ritual or ceremony or worship. It's not prayer or anything like that. There's nothing mystical or magical with the chants. I suspect the Buddha didn't actually create these chants himself, that his students probably created them either during his life or after his death, because you see a lot of respect and admiration given to the Buddha in the chants, and a Buddha wouldn't walk around and teach people to chant these kinds of things to them as a way of honoring and respecting them. But if you learn from a Buddha and they help you move from anger and sadness and frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety, all the boredom and loneliness and shyness and resentment is eliminated from your mind, you'd have a lot of respect for that person. He didn't want anything from his students. So I suspect that his students created this as a way of showing their appreciation and gratitude to him. So we chant these as a way to ease into meditation. And then once we're in meditation, I'll give you guys some guidance to be able to help you meditate. And then there'll be a period of time where it'll just be quiet and we'll just be meditating. I'm sure you're going to hear an occasional sound or something like this, but you'll just be able to cut that off and let it go and bring the mind back to the breath. And then we'll come out of the meditation with some more chanting. If you're sitting on the floor, you might sit with your legs crossed, just lightly crossed, not real tight. Some people like to put their legs off the mat. This helps to get the hips up in the air, and it lessens the angle at the hips, the knees, and the ankles. And then with your hands in your arms, the Buddha put his right hand over his left with his thumbs together, and he put that into his lap. If that's comfortable for you, you could use it. But some people like to put their palms on their thighs or on their knees or their palms up. These are all options. Everyone doesn't need to be in the exact same body position. You can essentially find what's comfortable for you. You're interested in the body not being luxurious, but also not being painful either. So the body should be comfortable. The upper body should be erect. This keeps the mind attentive and alert during the meditation, whereas if you were slouched, the mind would have a tendency to be dull or lethargic. But if you were real rigid, the mind would have a tendency to be overactive or uptight. So by having the upper body in the middle, it helps the mind to be attentive and alert for the meditation. So as I mentioned, I'm going to ease into meditation with some chanting. You're welcome to chant along if you'd like, or you might just decide to close your eyes and start breathing in through the nose and out through the nose. Then I'll come back in with some guidance for meditation. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Bhagava Wat Tung Bhagavantang Apivateyami Savakhato Bhagavata Dhammo Dhammang Namasami Supatipano Bhagavato Sāvaka Saṅkho Saṅghang Namami. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. อิติปิโสมะคะวะอะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธวิชาจารณังสัมมุโนสกขาโตโรกาวิตุอนุเตโรปุริสานามาสติสตาตาวาปมานุสนังพุทโธภาควาติ Okay, with the lower body and the hands and arms comfortable, in the upper body erect, just close the eyes and start breathing in through the nose and out through the nose. Here you're just looking to establish the breath. A nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. Not forced or controlled. Just a gradual inhale through the nose, experiencing the full breath. And then, whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. Your breath may not match up with the guidance that I'm providing, and that's okay. This is your practice. I'm just here for guidance. You can use this voice as a reminder that whenever you get to the next inhale, breathe in gradually through the nose, establishing a nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. And then, whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose, experiencing the full breath. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the breath well established, start fixating the mind on the breath, either the sound of the breath coming into the nose or the sensation of air moving over the skin into the nose. The breath is the present moment. Fixate the mind on the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the mind fixated on the breath, whenever you notice that it moves off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. No need to observe the thought, label it, judge it, analyze it, or even try to figure out where it's coming from. Whenever you notice that the mind is moved off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. I'm going to be quiet now and let you do this work of focusing on the breath, cutting off and letting go anytime the mind moves off the breath. You have nowhere to go. There's nothing to do. No one needs you right now. This is your time to focus on the breath. Breathing in and out. อะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธมะคะวะพุทธังภะคะวันตังอภิวาเทมิสวากขาโตมะคะวะตาธัมโมธัมมังนามัสสามิสุปฏิปันโนภะคะวะโตสาวกสังโฆสังฆังนามามินะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะอิติปิโสภะคะวะอะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธวิชาจารนังสัมมุโนสกขาโตโรกาวิตุอนุเตโรปุริสานามาสติสัตตาตาวาปานุสนังพุทโธภะคะวะติ Okay, if you guys would like to slowly make your way out of meditation. Okay. Today is what we call our Pali Canon and English study group, where we study the words of the Buddha as a study group. We go through volumes 2 through 13 of the book series, and now we're in volume 11, which is The Realms of Existence. In this program, students have usually already established a really nice foundation for the teachings of the Buddha, and now we come together and we study the original words of the Buddha. This isn't necessarily the best place to get started in your journey to enlightenment, particularly in volume 11, but I thought that since there's just a few people here, and I know pretty much the background of you guys, and I know you guys are just kind of coming for, at least you're coming for the first time, you've been here a couple of times. I thought what I would do is, instead of keeping with the scheduled program and the scheduled plan, which is to basically read each one of these chapters, then I share a little bit of teachings on that, and then we move on to the other chapters. Instead of doing that, which I don't think you guys are going to get the most benefit from, I thought what I would do is kind of see if there's something else you guys would like to learn besides going into this, because I don't think this is the best place for you guys to gain benefit out of your time here. If you would like to learn this, we can go through this, and I will surely teach you the Pali Canon and English study group. But if you would like to learn something different, or you'd like to talk about something different, then we can do that instead. So I'll turn it over to you guys. Are you interested in learning the Pali Canon and English study group, which is chapters 51 through 60, where you're learning about the words of the Buddha, and you guys are reading a chapter, then I'm sharing like 5 minutes about that chapter, and then we open up to any questions that you guys have, like a study group, or would you rather me just teach you a certain topic? You have a thought? To see the words of the Buddha? Okay. Uh-huh. Mm-hmm. You never did that. Okay. Okay. What about you, ma'am? Did you come here with specific things you were interested in learning? Mm-hmm. So you decided to come. Okay. Okay. Sounds good. How about you? Do you have something that you had in mind that you would like to learn? Mm-hmm. 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 Okay. How about you, Joel? What are your thoughts?
I also would like to have you pick the topic or maybe a quick recap of the retreat since I missed a little bit. I try to watch some YouTube videos,
Mm-hmm.
but I haven't catch up. So I saw there was some videos that I just trying to remember the title of the video. But yeah, I'm open for you picking a topic
Mm-hmm.
and having and reading.
Okay. We have somebody here in Zoom. Keely, do you have an idea of something you would like to learn today, or what's your thought of what you're interested in learning? Can you open up your mic and share with us?
Yeah, good morning, David.
Good morning.
I'm okay with the Pali language.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
All right, sounds good. So let's do this. Let's read a couple of chapters of the Pali Canon, which is what we scheduled to do, and then you guys can see a little bit of that. So there's a couple of people that would like to learn a little bit of that, and then we'll kind of explore that for maybe 2 or 3 chapters, so you can see what it's like, and then I'll check in again and see if you guys would like to keep going, and if it's meeting your needs, or if we should maybe switch to something else. How's that work? Okay. All right. So let me switch over here online so the people online can see what it is that I'm displaying here. All right, here we go. All right, so the way that we do our Pali Canon English study group is a student will volunteer either here at the temple or online through Zoom to read a particular chapter. And what you'll do is just read the title and read the words of the Buddha here. This one you can see is about a page and just a little bit. And then what I do is after you guys read that, then I will share some teachings on that, helping you guys understand what it is. And then I'll open up to any questions that you guys have. What these books have, volume 2 through 13, is they have the words of the Buddha. Then they have a reference, which goes back to the original Pali Canon. So if you'd like to see what the Buddha was talking about before or after this, you can go back to the original Pali Canon. And then you've got words from me that are reflections to be able to help you. In some cases like this is just a half a page. In other cases, it's much longer of me helping you to understand what the Buddha is teaching. The words of the Buddha are very straightforward to understand once you understand his teachings. But sometimes some of these chapters, they're related to a different teaching that you may not have learned before. So that's what I'm doing, is I'm kind of pulling it all together for you and helping you see how to reflect on this teaching and how to practice it. So is there someone here or someone on Zoom that would like to volunteer to read this first chapter? Okay, yeah, please, if you could get a microphone, just for any of you guys that would like to ask questions or read during the class, there's a gray switch on the front of the microphone, and the light comes on, and you just wait about a second, and then you can talk into the microphone. That way we'll hear you here at the temple, and then they'll hear you online as well. So yes, go ahead.
Chapter 51. Consciousness, conditions, name and form. I have said, consciousness, conditions, name and form. And this is the way that should be understood, Ananda. If consciousness were not to come into the mother's womb, would name and form develop there? No, Venerable Sir. Or, if consciousness having entered the mother's womb were to be deflected, would name and form come to birth in this life? No, Venerable Sir. And if the consciousness of such a tender young being, boy or girl, were thus cut off, would name and form grow, develop, and mature? No, Venerable Sir. Therefore, Ananda, just this, namely consciousness, is the root, the cause, the origin, the condition of name and form. I have said, name and form conditions, consciousness, and this is the way that should be understood, Ananda. If consciousness did not find a resting place in name and form, would there subsequently be an arising and coming to be of birth, aging, death, and discontentedness? No, Venerable Sir. Therefore, Ananda, just this, namely name and form, is the root, the cause, the origin, the condition of consciousness. Thus far then, Ananda, we can trace birth and decay, death and falling into other states of being reborn. Thus far extends the way of designation, thus far extends the ways of concepts, thus far is the sphere of understanding, thus far the round goes as far as can be discerned in this life, namely to name and form together with consciousness.
Okay, thank you very much. So this particular book is called The Realms of Existence. It's volume 11 of the book series, and it's volume 11 for a reason, because there's certain teachings in there that are needing background information from all the other volumes. So jumping right into volume 11 like this oftentimes is very challenging for someone, especially someone just starting out. So this particular teaching an individual would need to understand what's called dependent origination in order to really understand this. And that's back in volume 5, chapter 14. And I also taught that in the retreat this past week. Dependent origination is the highest ultimate truth of the Buddha, where he's showing you 12 interlinking steps to understand how you experience and why you experience discontentedness and why you experience rebirth. He's showing you from the beginning all the way to the end of why you keep coming back in the world over and over and over and over again. And here he's talking about one particular aspect of dependent origination. He's talking about consciousness. Consciousness is the mind itself. And he's saying consciousness conditions name and form. What name and form is the physical body. So what he's saying is that if there's a consciousness, then it's going to find a physical body. Right? Because the whole goal of the path to enlightenment is to train the mind, eliminating craving, desire, attachment, and all the other causes and conditions that lead to continuous rebirth. These causes and conditions lead to discontentedness, but these causes and conditions also lead to rebirth. So by getting to enlightenment, training the mind, not only is your mind going to be peaceful, calm, serene, and content with joy for the rest of this life, but you'll no longer experience rebirth any longer. So the whole goal is to understand these interlinking steps so that you can dismantle dependent origination so you don't keep experiencing discontentedness over and over. And so you don't keep experiencing rebirth over and over. So what the Buddha is saying is if there's causes and conditions that produce a consciousness, which is the mind, then that mind is going to find a physical body. And now when that consciousness comes into the mother's womb, there would be a name and form. But now the Buddha is explaining just the opposite. He's saying if consciousness were not to come into the mother's womb, would a physical body develop there? That's what he's essentially saying. And his students say, no, Venerable Sir. So what the Buddha is guiding you to do is eliminate the causes and conditions that are producing discontentedness And those same causes and conditions are also eliminating the generation of a new consciousness, so that a new consciousness doesn't come to be. So you don't have an additional life after this one, because if you don't have a consciousness, then you're not going to find a physical body and come back into the world and be reborn over and over and over again. So, or if consciousness, having entered the mother's womb, were to be deflected, this is essentially like a miscarriage, right? Would name and form come to birth in this life? Meaning, would there become a being that comes to birth in this life? If there was no consciousness, would there be a birth? And the students say, no, Venerable Sir, there wouldn't be a birth. So then the Buddha says, and if the consciousness of such a tender young being, boy or girl, were thus cut off, would name and form grow, develop, and mature? No. Right? So if there's no consciousness, there's not going to be any being. Therefore, Ananda is one of his closest students. He was with him all the way through his teaching career. He was either his cousin or his brother-in-law. The guidance isn't quite clear, but he was definitely a close family member of the Buddha, and he was with him for 45 years. And Ananda is the one who's credited with remembering the teachings of the Buddha. There was lots of other people that remembered them too, but he's the one who helped to document the teachings of the Buddha after the Buddha died. So he's talking to Ananda here. He says, therefore, Ananda, just this, namely consciousness, is the root, the cause, the origin, the condition of name and form. Meaning, you can't come into existence if there's no consciousness. There can't be a being if there's no consciousness, right? I have said name and form conditions consciousness, and this is the way that should be understood, Ananda. If consciousness did not find a resting place in name and form, would there subsequently be an arising and coming to be of birth, aging, death, and discontentedness? No, Venerable Sir. So if there's no consciousness, if there's no renewed consciousness that continues on after this life, then there's not going to be any further existence, right? So the Buddha is explaining that. Therefore, Ananda, just this, namely name and form, is the root, the cause, the origin, and the condition of consciousness. Thus far, then, Ananda, we can trace birth and decay, death and falling into other states, and being reborn. So he's just basically showing this is the real cause of what's leading to rebirth. There's all these 12 interlinking steps, but ultimately you get to a consciousness. If there's ignorance, there's going to be volitional formations. Those volitional formations are choices and decisions. And then those lead to the generation of a consciousness. And then that consciousness is going to now find a physical body. And now through all the other steps, a being comes into existence, and now you're going to experience discontentedness. So you're dismantling this by cultivating wisdom, is what dependent origination will show you. Okay? So here, this other part here, the Buddha is just kind of summarizing all of this and basically talking about going around and around and around, being reborn multiple times. So do you guys have any questions on this one? Yeah, this one, it requires you to understand dependent origination, which is the highest, most ultimate truth. Yeah, this word name and form, it kind of confuses people. But the way that you think about it is just think about it as a physical body. The Buddha describes what name and form is in his teachings, but he describes it through what we call the four-element theory, which isn't something that people widely understand today. I understand it because I studied it when I was learning traditional Thai medicine, but the average person doesn't understand it. So we understand the body through cells and molecules and atoms and bones and blood and pus and tissue and all these different things. So you can just think of name and form as that, as the physical body. So oftentimes when people see this, they get confused. So if you saw dependent origination, which, let me see if I can pull it up here. Maybe I will pull it up. Yeah, you have a question? Go ahead.
This would be, well, I don't want to simplify the thing, but it's like there is this consciousness that is not necessarily yet in this realm or any of, and then because of such cravings and desires and ignorance, it finds a way to be able to get what is craving for, and that's why it gets attached to a body, something like it.
Essentially, yes. This life that you're in right now, if there's craving, desire, attachment at the end of this life, then that's the fuel that causes the spark that now creates a new mind, a new consciousness. Just like if you have a fire that has logs on it, those logs are the fuel. And now as long as that fire is burning, it's sending off sparks. And those sparks get carried by the wind, and then it lands and it ignites a new fire. And now that's a completely new fire from the fuel of the previous fire. So a being that comes into existence, this being right here that we're looking at right now, if this being has craving, that's the fuel that now that this being dies, now it's going to send a spark that creates a new consciousness, a brand new consciousness. So that's why any one of us have come into existence, because in a previous life, we didn't get to enlightenment, and then there was a spark that got carried, and then it created a new consciousness. And now that new consciousness is going to find a new body. It's going to find a new existence. And based on your karma in that previous life, you're going to find an existence in one of the 5 realms, either hell, animal, afflicted spirit, human realm, or heavenly realm. All of us have ended up here in the human realm, which is the ideal existence to be in, because now we have the opportunity to get to enlightenment. We can train our mind. We have motivation to do that. And we can see that our mind can be developed, and you can see the continuous improvement to the mind becoming more peaceful and more joyful. So it's craving, desire, attachment that's causing discontentedness, but it's also craving, desire, attachment that's causing rebirth as well. So when you extinguish craving, desire, attachment, your discontentedness gradually diminishes, and you can see that happening in this life. And when you fully extinguish craving, desire, attachment, you'll no longer have any discontentedness. And you'll also know that you're not going to experience rebirth any longer either, because of dependent origination, which I'm going to show you now. Would you like to see it? Because we talked about it in the retreat, but now I can show it again because Joel and some others maybe would like to see this. All right, so let me share this online. Keely, can you see the chapter titled Dependent Origination?
No, David, it's still the same slide earlier shared.
Okay, I think you can see it now, right? Okay, so now everybody can see this. Keely, you can see dependent origination now on the screen, right?
David, I can see it.
Okay, perfect. All right. Okay, so this is the teaching that the Buddha was referencing here in that previous chapter. This is the highest, most ultimate truth of the Buddha. This is something that you build up to learn. It's not even something you start out with right away, but I'm going to help you guys to understand it a bit, because this is what the other teaching was referencing, okay? So here, this is where the Buddha is explaining to you the causes and conditions that are leading to discontentedness and leading to rebirth. And this takes time for somebody to gradually learn this. When you first start on the path to enlightenment, you're learning the Four Noble Truths, which gives you like a window into understanding the unenlightened mind. In 4 simple statements, you learn that the problem is discontentedness, those conditioned feelings of pleasant, painful, neither painful nor pleasant. The problem that the unenlightened mind is experiencing is conditional feelings, that the mind experiences pleasant feelings like happiness, excitement, elation, thrill, exhilaration, euphoria. But then the mind experiences painful feelings like sadness, anger, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety. These are all very painful for the mind to experience. Then there's neither painful nor pleasant, which is like shyness or discomfort. Right? It's neither painful nor pleasant. Like if you were sitting next to someone you didn't know on public transportation and your body was touching their body, it's not painful. It's not pleasant. Your mind's kind of uncomfortable maybe in that situation. This is called discontentedness. The unenlightened mind is going up and down and up and down. This is the problem in the unenlightened mind. The cause of that problem is described in the second noble truth. The reason why your mind is experiencing these conditioned feelings, these discontent feelings, is because of craving, desire, attachment, the mind longing, yearning, chasing after the objects of its affection. As long as the mind gets what it wants, you'll get happy, you'll get excited, you'll get elated. But then when you don't get what you want, you'll get frustrated, you'll get annoyed, you'll get irritated, you'll get angry. This is because of the craving, desire, attachment. Oftentimes people blame others for the feelings that you experience. When you get angry, you might blame other people. But in reality, your mind is causing your anger itself because of craving, desire, attachment, the longing, the yearning. And then the third noble truth, the Buddha explains, to eliminate discontentedness, basically to eliminate anger and sadness and frustration. That's his whole path. You get to peace and joy where your mind's permanently peaceful and joyful. The way to eliminate the discontent feelings is to eliminate craving, desire, attachment. And then the way to do that is in the fourth noble truth. The Eightfold Path is the path that leads to the complete elimination of discontentedness. So he's teaching you how to train your mind to eliminate sadness and anger and frustration. And this comes with gradual training and gradual practice. So this is just a brief little summary of the Four Noble Truths, which gives you a window into understanding the problem in the unenlightened mind, the cause, the elimination, and the path forward. The problem is discontentedness. The cause of that, craving, desire, attachment, longing, yearning, wanting things your way. The third noble truth, the elimination of discontentedness, is through eliminating craving, desire, attachment. The fourth noble truth, the way to eliminate discontentedness is the Eightfold Path. So this is like one of the very first teachings that you learn. It usually takes me about 45 minutes or an hour to walk students through to thoroughly learn this and understand it. And then you can see the truth for yourself that your mind is causing your own discontent feelings. Because the teachings of the Buddha, they're not based in belief. You're learning, you're reflecting to independently verify, and you're practicing to be able to see the truth and awaken to the wisdom of the Buddha, so that then you can transform your mind and uproot these certain pollutions that are in your mind. Well, then after you learn the Four Noble Truths, that's like a summarized version of what's going on in the unenlightened mind. You go deeper into what's called the 3 unwholesome roots, or the 3 poisons, or the 3 fires. This is a much deeper understanding of what's going on in the unenlightened mind and why it's experiencing what it's experiencing. This is where you learn about craving, anger, and ignorance. What craving is that longing, that yearning, that chasing after your selfish desires, wanting things to be a certain way. And if you get what you want, you get pleasant feelings. If you don't get what you want, you get painful feelings. So because of the cravings, then the anger arises. Now when your mind's angry, you'll tend to blame it on other people, and you'll push people away out of your life. You'll think that solves the problem. You just push your friends, push your family away, push your coworkers away. This is called aversion. Or you might push the situation away. If there's a certain situation that you feel that this painful feelings in your mind is being caused by this situation or this person, you push that away and you think that solves the problem, but it doesn't, because you just get angry and frustrated and irritated all over again about something else in the future. Or the other thing that'll happen when your anger is arising is you'll become bitter and harsh and hostile towards other people through your intentions, your speech, and your actions. Your intentions, speech, and actions will be unskillful. You'll talk aggressive and hostile to people, almost trying to fear them into doing things your way. Or the third thing that you'll do is you'll put your expectations on people and you'll try to control people and get them to do things your way. So when the mind has cravings, that means it's going to sometimes be happy, but that happiness is temporary because it's based on some condition. That happiness arises, it changes, and it fades away. So if you get what you want, you'll get happy. But if you don't get what you want, you get painful feelings. And one of those feelings is like the anger. The anger arises in the mind, and now you become unskillful. You push people away, you push the situation away, you become bitter and harsh and hostile, or you put your expectations on people. And now people don't want to be around you because they feel pressured, right? So as long as your mind keeps having craving, it's going to keep having anger. And now you're going to function unskillfully in your relationships. And where all of this is coming from is the ignorance or the unknowing of true reality, the lack of wisdom, the confusion, the misunderstanding that the mind has. The unenlightened mind lacks wisdom. It firmly believes that other people are causing you to be angry, or other people are causing you to be frustrated. The unenlightened mind firmly believes this. You will sit there and argue and fight and try to convince somebody that they have caused you to be angry, and they need to change what they are doing so that you will no longer be angry. And as long as you keep doing that, you'll never solve your anger, because you can't convince 8 billion people to do things your way. It's just not possible. The only time the mind is happy in the unenlightened state is when it gets what it wants. And you can't get what you want permanently. In some cases, you're not going to get what you want, and now you get angry. So it's the ignorance or the unknowing of true reality, the lack of wisdom, where the mind falsely believes that something external is causing your inner feelings, when in reality, what's causing the inner feelings is this craving, desire, attachment. So while we call it craving, anger, and ignorance is the 3 poisons or the 3 unwholesome roots or the 3 fires, it's really because of ignorance, craving and anger continues. That if it wasn't for this ignorance, if it wasn't for this lack of wisdom and this confusion and this misunderstanding, craving and anger would no longer exist. So when you arise wisdom by not believing the teachings of the Buddha, you learn them, reflect on them, and practice them, you can train your mind to eliminate craving. And if you eliminate craving and anger, then you can be peaceful and you can be joyful. But as long as you have ignorance or a lack of wisdom or unknowing of true reality, you won't know how to train your mind. You won't know how to fix it. If you just keep going around blaming other people for the problems you're experiencing, then you'll continue to struggle and have difficulties, because that's not the real problem that you're experiencing in life. The real problem is inside your own mind. So this is what's called the 3 poisons or the 3 unwholesome roots or the 3 fires: craving, anger, and ignorance. And because of ignorance, craving and anger continues. So yes, ma'am, you have a question? If you can use that microphone. And then when you're done speaking, if you could turn the microphone off.
I just want to ask you, you were telling that we have anger towards other people. Mm-hmm. And I discover, like, my whole life, I'm not angry against others. I'm a lot angry against myself. So I was interested because today you were talking when we have craving, desires, and then we get harsh to other people or stuff like that. And also on Thursday, and it was already there in my mind that I discover more like a lot of hate and anger against myself.
Mm-hmm. It's the same thing, that there's certain cravings you have in your mind, certain things you want, and when you get those, you feel happy, you feel excited. But when you don't get those cravings fulfilled, you get angry. That anger arises, and here I'm talking about directing it towards others, but you can direct it towards yourself too, as this being. So there's something that your mind is wanting and longing and yearning for, and you don't get that. If we talked more and you shared more of the detail, I'm sure we can discover what the cravings, desires, attachments are, and you're directing it towards this being who you are, and you're angry with yourself. Yeah, the same thing. It's all coming from the craving. And the number one thing that's allowing the craving to continue is the ignorance or the unknowing of true reality. The mind lacks wisdom, that it doesn't understand craving and anger. And because of this lack of wisdom, the craving and anger continues to persist. Right? So when you gain wisdom of what's truly going on in your mind, and you get the tools and the techniques to solve it, which is what the Buddha gives you, then you can fix your problem. But if you don't have wisdom, you can't fix your problem. So what some people do is they just go around the world believing things. With belief, you don't know what's true or false. But with the teachings of the Buddha, you learn them, you reflect on them to independently verify them, and then you practice them. And this is how you see the wisdom that the condition of your mind is gradually improving, because the discontentedness gradually diminishes as you train your mind more and more. Meditation is one technique we use to train the mind, but there's other things you need as well to train your mind. So what the Buddha's teachings are showing you is he's explaining to you the problem in the unenlightened mind, is showing you the detail of that. And so far, I just briefly summarized the Four Noble Truths, and I briefly summarized the 3 poisons, so that now you can go to the next level of detail, which is dependent origination. This is like the super detail of exactly why your mind's experiencing discontentedness and why you keep experiencing rebirth over and over. But because some of you just heard me summarize the Four Noble Truths and the three poisons, this is going to be a pretty deep teaching for you. But let me at least introduce it to you so you can understand truly how deep the teachings of the Buddha are. And with more time and learning, if you start at the beginning, you can gradually build up to the point where you understand something like this, which is dependent origination. This is the highest, most ultimate truth of the Buddha. He's showing you the 12 interlinking steps of what's leading to discontentedness. So as I just said, ignorance, this is the ignorance, the unknowing of true reality. Down here, he's talking about craving. And then down here, he's talking about discontentedness. So I said, because of ignorance, craving and anger continues to exist. Even though we call it craving, anger, and ignorance, it's because of ignorance, craving, and anger continues to exist. Here's how you can see that. What the Buddha is saying is that with ignorance in the mind, with this unknowing of true reality, with this lack of wisdom, there are then going to be volitional formations. These are choices and decisions. You're going to make choices and decisions in the world based in ignorance. This unknowing of true reality. You're going to lie. You're going to steal. You're going to have sexual misconduct. You're going to take substances that cause heedlessness. You're going to argue with other people. You're going to be bitter. You're going to be harsh. You're going to be hostile. You're going to blame other people for the things that you experience. These are the unwise decisions that an individual makes when their mind is ignorant or having this unknowing of true reality, this lack of wisdom. This word ignorance is kind of a derogatory word nowadays, so that's why I like to use this unknowing of true reality, that the unenlightened mind just doesn't understand what it doesn't understand. And because of this lack of wisdom, it goes around making all kinds of unwise decisions about certain things in life. The mind is just making decisions based in this ignorance, this unknowing of true reality. So now when you're making those unwise decisions, you're producing unwholesome results. Because of your lack of wisdom of the natural law of karma, of this cause and effect or action and result, you're making unwise decisions that are producing unwholesome results. You yell and holler and get argumentative with your mom or your dad or your brothers and sisters, and they argue right back with you. And now you have a broken relationship. Or your boyfriends or your girlfriends or your children. You argue and you're bitter and you're harsh and you're hostile, and you have difficulties maintaining relationships in some situations. This is because of the ignorance, the unknowing of true reality. You don't know how to sit down and just have a discussion and share your opinion and your view. With the mind having this ignorance, it wants people to agree with you. And you'll fight to the death until people agree with you because you want them to know what you know, right? The mind's just going to sit there and just argue and argue and argue and be bitter and harsh and hostile. So these volitional formations or these choices and decisions are things like unskillful behavior, unskillful conduct, okay? Now, with that ignorance as condition, these volitional formations come to be, meaning these unwise decisions come to be. Now, with those unwise decisions, those volitional formations, now that's going to produce a consciousness. That's what is the mind. The consciousness is the mind. Now, with the consciousness as condition, because there's a consciousness in existence, that consciousness is now going to find a name and form, which is the physical body. When a consciousness comes into existence, it's going to find a name and form. It's going to find a body. Okay? Now, when that name and form in this consciousness has come together, when there's a mind and then there's a body that has come together, now it's going to produce the 6 sense spaces. The 6 sense spaces are the eyes, the ears, the nose, the tongue, the body itself, and then the mind. These are like windows that the mind is taking things in. Because when you have the 6 sense spaces, then you're going to experience contact through those 6 sense spaces. The mind's going to see through the eye a physical form. You're going to hear a sound. You're going to smell an odor. You're going to taste a flavor. You're going to experience a physical object touching the body. And then there's going to be a mental object. You're going to come in contact with some objects, either forms, sounds, odors, flavors, physical objects, or mental objects. This is the contact that you experience. Then, based on that contact, you're going to have a feeling. You're going to have either a pleasant feeling, a painful feeling, or a feeling that's neither painful nor pleasant. Then you're going to start having craving. You're going to start craving those pleasant feelings, the happiness, the excitement, the elation. You're craving it. You're wanting everything to be permanently pleasing, wanting everything to be permanently agreeable. There are certain things that you agree, and there are certain things you disagree with. There are certain pleasurable things that you want, and there are certain things that you're trying to avoid, that you're pushing away. So there are certain things that you're attracted to, and there are certain things that you're repulsed by. This is due to your cravings, the longing, the yearning. I want things to be permanently this way. And when I get things that way, I get pleasant feelings. And when you don't get things that way, then you get painful feelings like sadness, anger, frustration, and others. This is all based on the craving, the longing, the yearning, the wanting. Once you're experiencing those pleasant feelings, and now the mind's craving for things to be pleasant all the time, then you experience clinging. Clinging is holding on to things, wanting them to be permanent. So there's craving, which is the longing and yearning externally, but then there's the clinging where you're holding on to things, wanting them to be permanent. Then, because of that, it's going to produce an existence. Could you turn off the mic? I think is that on? Yeah, if you could just turn it off. So then, because of the clinging, there's going to be existence, where now a being comes into the womb. The womb of the woman has now this existence. There's this being inside the womb. And now, inside the womb, there's this birth. The being is born. And now, when you're born, you're going to experience aging and death. You can't escape that. It's going to happen. You're going to experience aging and death. This life is not permanent. Every single one of us will die. Because we arose, we have to fade away. We are not permanent. Every single one of us will die, right? So we're going to experience this aging and death because of birth. And then, because of this, you're going to also experience sorrow, grief, pain, displeasure, and despair. This is how this whole mass of discontentedness comes to be. So because of the mind's ignorance and this unknowing of true reality, it starts coming into existence through all of these things occurring. And now it's going to start experiencing these feelings, which produces these cravings. And then because of that, it's going to come into the world and experience all this birth, aging, death, sorrow, grief, displeasure. So here's another way. Ignorance, this unknowing of true reality, it means that you have now craving in the mind, this longing, yearning, this chasing after the objects of your affection. And as long as you have that craving, then you're going to experience sorrow, grief, pain, displeasure, and despair. So if you can eliminate ignorance, if you can eliminate the unknowing of true reality, and you can see the truth that your mind is causing its own discontentedness, it's your own cravings, desires, attachments that's causing the anger, and then you can learn the tools and techniques to fix it, Now you can eradicate the ignorance. You can get to wisdom. And then when you eradicate ignorance, then your decisions are no longer going to be made through ignorance. It's going to be made through wisdom. And you can dismantle this whole thing. You can get to the point where you no longer experience any discontentedness. And therefore, you won't experience rebirth either. But you need to cultivate the wisdom. That's why people come to the temple. That's why they read books. That's why they talk with teachers. That's why you learn the path to enlightenment, so you can arise wisdom in your mind. And now you can start training your mind to function differently. Because when the untrained mind is functioning, it's going to experience sadness and anger and frustration. But if you can train your mind and you can discipline your mind through the wisdom of how to do that, now you can get to the point where you can control your mind, and the mind can be calm and peaceful and joyful all the time. You won't experience any sadness or stress or displeasure. By the time you get to enlightenment, you're not even in the slightest of a bad mood. You're just always in a good mood, no matter what's going on. So you can get to the point where you've cultivated enough wisdom about this world and about how the mind functions that you can make wise decisions that are producing improved states of mind, where you'll never experience even the slightest bit of ickiness in the mind any longer. And it just takes time to gradually train and get to that point. Yes, sir. We have some other mics too, if you guys would like to use those. There's a button on the front. You just have to turn that on. Just wait a second, and then it'll come on. There's a light.
Hello, and my name is Al, and thank you for hosting and inviting us to this satsang. 5-6 years ago, I was at a silent retreat, and my biggest wish was to become desireless and to free myself from all of these cravings, feelings, clingings, etc. And my dream came true, and then I regretted the most, because my life became tasteless, and I became jaded and couldn't enjoy anything anymore. And it's not that I was ignorant. I think I just let go of many things. My awareness of the consequences of any action I make now, it weighs so much, so heavily on me that I cannot enjoy anything.
Okay, so you didn't eliminate your craving, desires, attachments. You might think in your mind that that's what you did, but you don't just wish to eliminate your desires and then that wish comes true and it happens. The way that you eliminate cravings, desires, attachments is you train your mind. You train your mind to eliminate the longing, yearning. And when you do, the mind becomes peaceful and joyful permanently. By the time somebody eliminates their desires, they're not going to experience what you're experiencing. You said that you were experiencing a tasteless life. You didn't have any enjoyment in life or whatsoever. That's not what an enlightened being is going to experience. Whatever you experienced in that situation, it wasn't enlightenment, and it wasn't the elimination of craving, desires, attachments. You still had cravings, desires, attachments, and you couldn't enjoy life because of still having the cravings, desires, attachments. By the time you get to enlightenment, you can enjoy every aspect of life. There's thorough enjoyment. So whatever you were experiencing, it wasn't enlightenment. It wasn't the elimination of craving, desire, attachment. You might have thought that was the case, but it actually wasn't. You can't just wish for the elimination of desire. That's not how it happens. The Buddha isn't granting you enlightenment. Instead, you're learning teachings, you're cultivating wisdom, and then as you train your mind and eliminate your cravings, desires, attachments, then the mind moves into this brightness and this radiance and this joy. What the craving is I can only be happy in these situations. So the craving, desire, attachment is like, if my bank account is this, I will be happy. If the weather is this, I will be happy. If my mom does this, I will be happy. If my boss does this, I will be happy. That's what craving, desire, attachment is. So let's take one of those. The bank account is this, I will be happy. But then when the bank account goes here, then the mind is sad or angry or frustrated because the mind doesn't like that the bank account went down. So by eliminating a craving, desire, attachment, the mind can be happy no matter what your bank account balance is. In the mind in the unenlightened state, when there's craving, desire, attachment, the mind can only be happy when the bank account is this level. So if the bank account has $5,000, the mind will be happy. But then when it has $2,000, it will be sad or frustrated or irritated or annoyed. And this is what's called conditional happiness. The mind can only be happy when this condition is met, that the bank account has $5,000. So now when the bank account goes to $2,000, now the mind is sad or frustrated or irritated. So if you get rid of the craving, desire, attachment, you can be happy if the bank account has $5,000, if it has $2,000, if it has $2, you can be happy. Or if you have no bank account at all, you can still be happy when you have craving, desire, attachment. So that is what it means to eliminate craving, desire, attachment, that you can now have unconditional happiness, that you can be happy in all situations, despite what's going on. With craving, desire, attachment, here's another example. An individual will maybe crave the sun, and now when it's sunny outside, you'll be happy. But then when it rains, you'll be sad. That's because of craving, desire, attachment, the longing, the yearning, the wanting things to be a certain way. And now when it's sunny, you'll be happy, you'll be excited. But then when it rains, you'll be angry, you'll be sad. So getting to the elimination of craving, desire, attachment doesn't mean that you eliminate everything from your life. The craving, desire, attachment isn't the object itself. It's not the phone. It's not the computer. It's not the relationship. It's not the food. The object isn't the craving, desire, attachment. It's how the mind is longing, yearning for that thing. Sometimes people think the way to get to enlightenment is to eliminate everybody out of your life, to eliminate all the computers, the phones, the whatever. That's not how you get to enlightenment. You need to eliminate the craving and the longing and yearning for this thing. So for example, having a phone isn't the attachment. This phone isn't the attachment. The attachment would be if the mind was longing and yearning for it, wanting it to be permanent. So now when you have it with you, you feel happy and you feel excited and you feel good. But then when you accidentally leave it at home, maybe you have fear, or you're stressed, or you have anxiety because you don't have it with you. So it's not the phone itself, it's the mind longing, yearning for it. So you can eliminate that craving for the phone so that then you can have a phone and you can use it as a tool or as a technique for what it is that you need to do. But then when you leave it at home by accident, okay, no big deal. You can still go on with your day and still be peaceful and joyful. Or if you drop it and it breaks, you can still be peaceful and joyful. You're not joyful because it broke. You're joyful despite that it broke. So it's not the phone itself that is causing the problem. So sometimes what people do, it sounds like this might have been what you did, is try to eliminate things out of your life. And then you got to the point where you're just lonely and by yourself. That's not how you get to enlightenment. That's going to produce a lot of difficulties in your life because you need to have people in your life, but you just need to learn how to not be attached to the people so that your mind can maintain your peacefulness and joy, whether you're with people or whether you're alone, either way. Does that make sense?
Definitely. So equanimity.
Yes, equanimity is part of the path to enlightenment. That's just one mental state that you need in addition to all the other mental states. It sounds like you didn't have somebody to help you to be able to understand how to truly train your mind to get to enlightenment. And it sounds like you were doing some things that I would consider to be unwise. And if you would like to learn how to get to enlightenment, I will surely help you. I have books, I have audiobooks, videos, podcasts, classes, courses, retreats, personal guidance. I help you at no cost. You don't have to pay me anything at all. I'll show you how to get to enlightenment, but you can do it the way that the Buddha taught, rather than the way that people think they should get to enlightenment. The Buddha didn't teach to eliminate everything out of your life, and that's how you get to enlightenment. Sometimes people think that's what he taught. The Buddha still had clothes, he still had food, he still had relationships with people, he still came in contact with people, he still had great conversations. If enlightenment was tasteless and unenjoyable, nobody would be interested in getting to enlightenment. But if you understand what enlightenment is, which is where the mind is peaceful, calm, serene, and content with joy, you can be joyful no matter what. You can be having fun and enjoyment all the time. In the unenlightened state, you can only have happiness in these select situations. if my bank account is this, if my mom does this, if the weather is this, if my boss does this. There's only a limited criteria that when all these criteria line up, then you will be happy. And that's a very small amount of time that you can be happy. And that's because of craving, desire, attachment. The mind wants all these things to line up. And when all these things line up, then you'll be happy. And it's a very small amount of time that you can be happy. But by the time you get to enlightenment, you eliminate the longing, the yearning, the craving, desire, attachments. And now you can be happy no matter what. If your bank account is here, your bank account is here, you can be happy. If your mom does this or your mom does that, you can still be happy. If your boss does this or your boss does that, you can still be happy. You can maintain your joy. So you can now be joyful all the time. So that's what enlightenment is, and that's why people are interested in getting to it. So it sounds like you didn't quite understand what enlightenment is. You didn't understand how to get there. You didn't have the tools and techniques to get there. You didn't have the resources to help you. You didn't have a person to be able to help you. So if that's what you would like to learn how to get to enlightenment. You've got that help now. I will help you. But you're going to need to do all the work, of course. But if that's what you would like, what I would encourage you to do is start with volume 1 of this book series. You can download it for free on the internet. You can take it and go print it if you like, or if you like to get printed copies here or on Amazon, you can. The printed versions here, I just ask that you reimburse me for the printing cost, and that way you can start with volume 1. And then there's various classes and courses and programs that you can take here at the temple, and you can attend online, because if you travel around, if you're not here in Thailand, you can join online, because right now we have people joining us online. That's why you're using the microphone, so the people online can hear you. So no matter where you are in the world, you can learn here if you like.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Just a quick parenthesis. So if people enlightened people would become happy with anything, then why would they put any effort doing anything?
It's wise decision making, where in the unenlightened state, the unenlightened mind typically pursue things out of craving, desire, attachment. They pursue things out of selfish desires, that the mind wants this, and now you're going to chase after it because of your selfish desires. When you're throttling that back and you're pulling the craving, desire, attachment back, you need to get to the point where you come to the middle, where you're making wise decisions. But what the unenlightened mind will typically do, and it sounds like this is what your mind did, is that when you're throttling back from craving, desire, attachment, the mind will typically swing like a pendulum to the other side. Where when you're chasing with craving, desire, attachment, that's what the unenlightened mind knows. When you start throttling that back, which it sounds like you did to a certain degree, your mind probably swung to the other side, where your mind was indifferent and you had lacked care, and you just didn't care about the world, and you didn't care what was going on in the world. You described it as your life became tasteless, right? And that's because the mind didn't come to the middle. When you're eliminating craving, desire, attachment, the mind doesn't just go right to the middle. What it does is you eliminate craving, desire, attachment, and as you do, the mind tends to swing like a pendulum all the way to the other side, where now you experience a bit of that tasteless life. But now you got to come back towards the middle, and you got to navigate to the middle, where you pursue things as a goal, as an objective, or an interest. And now, as a goal, objective, or interest, you can pursue things based in wise decision making. Right? So I don't crave for my son to be smart. I don't long and yearn for him to have good grades. I don't want him to have good grades. I don't expect him to have good grades. But I'm also not indifferent. Right? So the craving, desire, attachment is, I don't want him to have good grades. I don't expect him to have good grades. I don't chase and long and yearn for him to have good grades and to be a smart young man, right? But I'm also not indifferent, where I could care less what his grades are. I don't care if you go to school. I don't care if you get grades. I don't care if you disrespect your teachers. I don't care if you learn anything or not. I'm not there either. That's both sides, right? I'm in the middle, where, hey, son, you need to learn. You need to grow. You need to get wisdom. You need to go to school, and you need to respect your teachers, and you need to study your books. And when you come home, you need to be able to do your homework, right? So then I guide him in that, and I encourage him in that, and he has a certain goal as an objective or an interest. So when he comes home, we have fun, we have enjoyment, but then at some point it's like, hey, you know, have you thought about doing your homework? And he's like, yeah, I'd like to play a little bit more. Yeah, I'm sure you do, but it would probably be wise if you go ahead and start some homework, right? So I'm encouraging him. And then when his grades come home, I don't have any expectation of what his grades should be. So when I look at his report card, it's just like, okay, he's got these grades, whatever they are, I'm just going to talk to him about those grades and then talk to him about improving those grades and how can we improve these and what can I do as a father to help him improve these grades without putting pressure on him, without forcing him, without controlling him, because that would be the craving, desire, attachment, and also without being indifferent and not even looking at his report card because I don't care. So instead, I'm going to look at his report card without any expectation of anything, without wanting anything, looking at what he's got, and then figure out how to help him to improve and to get better. And then I help him on the computer to learn and grow and gain wisdom patiently and calmly. I teach him and guide him to get these good grades. So that's how you make decisions in the world, is through wise decision making, that you know it's wise that your son should be learning and growing and developing, that you're not craving and longing and yearning for him to do that, but you're not indifferent about it either. So any particular aspect of your life, whether it's your career, whether it's your personal life, whether it's your relationships, you can learn how to navigate the world through the middle way, rather than chasing or rather than being indifferent. And it takes time for the mind to gradually learn that. It's a gradual training, gradual practice, and gradual progress. Some people think that the Buddha sat under a tree, he meditated, and instantly got to enlightenment. And this isn't actually true. You can see his own words where he gradually trained his mind, he gradually practiced, and he gradually experienced progress. It took him 6 years to get to enlightenment. So it's going to take you time to gradually train your mind to navigate the world through these natural laws and then practice this middle way. Rather than wishing for something to happen, you can't wish something to happen. Everything that happens is based on your actions, based on your decisions that you make. That's what this dependent origination is essentially getting to, is these volitional formations, these choices and decisions is how you accomplish things in the world, is through your choices and decisions. But when you have this ignorance or this unknowing of true reality, when you don't have the wisdom of the path to enlightenment, you will naturally make unwise decisions. And it sounds like that's what you did when you were wishing for certain things to happen. You might have tried to block everything out of your life for a period of time, and then you didn't have any enjoyment whatsoever, and you started hating life and it felt miserable. Yeah, because you were going from one extreme of craving things to completely the opposite, where you were blocking everything out of your life. And that's not the way to get to enlightenment. Right? And that reason why that occurred is because of the ignorance, because of the unknowing of true reality, and you made certain choices and decisions that were unwise. But now you can cultivate the wisdom with the resources and someone to help you, and now you can make wise decisions that lead to improved results in your life.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome. What's your name again?
Al.
Al.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, where are you from?
I'm from Italy and France.
Oh, okay. Very good. Well, welcome. If you'd like to stick around after class, we can talk some more and I can help you get headed in the right direction, where I can connect you with the various resources that you need and the various programs and things like that. And I'd be pleased to help you, whether you're here in Thailand or you're somewhere else.
Thank you so much. Most definitely, I'll stick around.
Yeah, you're welcome. All right, so this dependent origination is a very deep teaching of the Buddha, and this oftentimes takes time, a lot of time for somebody to sit with this and really understand it and thoroughly walk through it. So the only reason why I'm showing you this is because of that previous chapter that we were looking at was related to this, right? So this is the highest, most ultimate truth, but it takes you time to build up to learning this. Most students, they might study with me for a minimum of a year, maybe a year and a half before they actually get to this particular teaching and they're ready to then understand it. But do you guys have any questions on this? Any questions? I don't see Keely have any questions either. Okay, so it's 10:30. I'm going to check in with you guys because I checked in at the beginning of the class about what it is you guys would like to learn. Would you guys like to read another chapter from the other book? Or would you like to switch and do something else? Or would you like to end class here? This was enough for you. It's up to you guys. I'm here for you. This is classism for me. Okay. How do you guys feel? Would you like to end class here? Would you like to learn some more? You're open? Okay, what about you, ma'am? You would like to learn more? What about you, sir? You're flexible? How about you, Joel? You like to learn more? Okay. And how about you, Keely? I think, what would you like to learn, Keely? Do you have something on your mind? Sure.
Since I was not in the class for some reason, I was busy yesterday, and I missed the class. And if you could share what is enlightenment, just like yesterday, I would be very happy to hear that, to catch it up. Thank you.
So you would like to learn what is enlightenment? Yeah? Okay. All right. And you have a question?
The consciousness means ego.
The consciousness is the mind. The ego is inside the mind. So if you think about the mind like a cardboard box, that's the consciousness, that's the mind, the cardboard box.
Yeah.
The ego is like the contents inside the cardboard box. This is the arrogance, the pride, the boastfulness.
Yeah. So the various ego, many egos make the consciousness, right?
No, the ego is like a pollution of the mind. It's a defilement of the mind. It's the arrogance, the pride, the boastfulness. It motivates all that kind of unskillful conduct. So it's the judging others, putting yourself above people, putting yourself below people. This is a certain aspect of the mind, a certain pollution of the mind. The mind itself is the cardboard box. The ego is inside that cardboard box, polluting the mind, making it difficult for you to then interact with people in a harmonious way.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So just a quick clarification from what you've been telling us. According to the teaching of Buddha, one could be ambitious yet not have craving if he finds the right limit. And one can also have self-confidence yet not have an ego.
Yes, 100%.
Right?
Yeah.
So just finding the right balance.
Yeah, so think about the Buddha, that he had lots of ambition. For 45 years, he shared his teachings into the world, and look at us, 2,500 years later, still talking about his teachings. So he had motivation, he had encouragement, he had enthusiasm, and he talks about it in his teachings. He talks about if you're dull and lethargic and you're just sitting around doing nothing, he's like, your life's not going to essentially amount to anything. He's like, if you would like to create some beneficial thing in the world, you're going to need to be able to actively participate in the world and have enthusiasm and motivation and encouragement. And he had that same thing because he didn't sit around and do nothing. He actively went out into the world and shared his teachings. And then he also had confidence, right? He knew his teachings were true and real. And when somebody would maybe say his teachings aren't true and real, he could then help them see that they were true and real. But he did it without craving, desire, attachment. If you have craving, desire, attachment, when somebody says to you, your teachings are false, they don't, this is wrong, you would get angry, you would get frustrated. But if you're enlightened and you don't have craving, desire, attachment, you can have self-confidence and you can know that what you're teaching is true without arrogance, without boastfulness, without pride. You can just confidently share what it is that you need to share in order to help that person understand. So yes, you can have confidence without ego, and you can have ambition without craving, desire, attachment. Absolutely. And that sounds like those were pieces you were missing before. You just need to learn how to do that.
Exactly. And you can enjoy worldly matters also, like the Maya, but to a certain extent.
Exactly. You can enjoy a piece of chocolate cake. You can enjoy going to the movies. You can enjoy listening to music, but you need to learn how to do it without craving, desire, attachment, where you don't base your inner feelings based on that thing. So, for example, you decide you would like to go see the new Batman movie, if there's a new Batman movie out, right? Say you go to the movies and you have craving, desire, attachment, and now you really want to see this Batman movie really badly, and now you show up to the movie theater and they have a ticket. And you get so excited. Yes, I get to see Batman. Oh, this is going to be so fun. Yes. Right now you go in and you see the Batman, right? Well, let's just say now the same thing happens. It's a different situation. Now you want to go see that Batman movie. Now you're going to the movies. You're so excited. Yes, I can't wait to see Batman. And you show up and the tickets are sold out. Oh, you're so angry or frustrated or agitated. Oh, I can't see Batman. You're so sad. You're experiencing painful feelings, right? That's what the unenlightened mind is going to experience. That when you get what you want, you get so excited. You get to go see Batman. Yay! But then if you go with craving, desire, attachment to the movie and you don't get what you want, the tickets are sold out. Now you're going to be frustrated. You're going to be agitated. You're going to be annoyed. If you're enlightened, meaning you don't have craving, desire, attachment, and you see that there's a new Batman movie playing, you're like, hey, I'd like to go see that Batman movie. That would be really fun. That would be enjoyable. Let's go see that Batman movie. You show up to the movie theater, they have your ticket. Sweet, they got a ticket. Let's get some popcorn. Let's get some candy. Let's go inside and watch the movie. Ah, this is a nice movie. Ah, this is really great. Wow, it's quite enjoyable. Okay, done. We go home. But now let's take the other scenario. Oh, Batman movie. This would be great. Let's go see this Batman movie. Remember, you're enlightened without craving, desire, attachment. You show up to the movie theater and they're like, oh, sorry, we don't have any tickets. We're sold out. Oh, okay, no big deal. You might say, what other movies do you have? Do you have another movie? Or you might say, oh, okay, no worries. When's the next ticket available that you have? Oh, tomorrow at 5 o'clock? Sure, let me get that one. And you'd be able to maintain your peacefulness. You'd be able to maintain your joy. In the unenlightened state with craving, desire, attachment, you can only be happy if you get Batman. If you don't get Batman, you're going to be angry and frustrated. So you can only be happy when this condition is met. I get my Batman tickets. In the enlightened state, you're already happy before you ever got to the Batman movie. And now when you show up to the Batman movie, if they have it, great, that's fine. You'll go see the Batman movie. But if they don't have the Batman movie, that's fine too, because your happiness isn't based on whether you get to see Batman or not. You're already happy. You have unconditioned happiness. So you can go watch movies, you can listen to music, you can do these things, but you're going to need to do it and learn how to do it without craving, desire, attachment, so you can maintain your contentedness and your joy, whether they have Batman or not, whether you listen to the music or not. You can maintain your joy regardless. So a person who gets to enlightenment, they can still watch movies, they can still listen to music and all those other things. They just need to learn how to do it without craving, desire, attachment.
That's an excellent example you touched on, because it shows exactly where I might have failed. So before anticipating any excitement to any Batman movie, I would go unexcited, knowing that I might not find tickets, which happened to most of the, let's say, experiences that I had. And so I would go knowing that there might not be any tickets. Sometimes I wouldn't even have enough motivation to go there, thinking that maybe there might not be any tickets. So how to keep, maybe this is the big question, how to keep the excitement and yet accept any condition, any consequence.
Yeah, you're not interested in keeping excitement. If you're welcoming in the excitement, that's a conditioned feeling that if I get this, I will be excited. As long as you allow your mind to get the conditioned pleasant feeling, it's only a matter of time before that condition changes. Now your mind is going to end up in the painful feeling. So if you welcome in the conditioned pleasant feelings, remember it's a conditioned pleasant feeling that I only get excited if I get what I want. As long as you allow the mind to form that conditioned pleasant feeling of excitement, it's only a matter of time before your mind ends up in the sadness or frustration, because that condition can't be permanently true. It's going to sometimes be untrue because of impermanence. So if you base your inner feelings of excitement on, I will get a Batman ticket, you're not going to permanently get a Batman ticket. It's not possible to get the movie theater ticket that you want all the time. So you train your mind to no longer form inner feelings based on some condition, right? So you're not welcoming in the excitement, but what you're maintaining is what's called the enlightenment factor of energy. This is part of the 7 factors of enlightenment. You need to maintain the enlightenment factor of energy, which is the enthusiasm, the motivation, the initiative, the willingness to do something. See, your mind swung from the craving to all the way over here to the other side, where sometimes you were unmotivated to even go to the movies because you were like dull and lethargic, right? Complacent. Your mind swung all the way to the other side, because when you start stripping away a lot of cravings so fast, the mind will swing to the other side. And that's why you ended up in the dullness and the lethargic and the complacency. So you're going to need to learn how to gradually let go of your cravings so the mind can more naturally move towards the middle. And if you do overshoot the middle, which you probably will, then you need to practice the enlightenment factor of energy to lift the mind back up and bring it towards the middle, because sometimes you will overshoot the middle and your mind will start heading towards that sluggish and dull and lethargic condition. And then you bring in the enlightenment factor of energy, where you move the mind back towards the middle, where now you can have enthusiasm and motivation and encouragement and ambition to go forward in life and do things that are meaningful to you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So Keely would like to learn about what is enlightenment. Let me make a couple of adjustments here on my technology so that I can teach you guys that. Okay, Keely, is this what you would like to understand? What is enlightenment? Or were you interested in what I taught yesterday, which is how to determine the first stage, if you've attained the first stage of enlightenment?
I think it's what you taught yesterday.
Okay, yeah, because I didn't teach this yesterday. Okay, let me switch one more time.
Thank you.
Okay, this is what you'd like to learn, right? How to determine if you've attained the first stage of enlightenment? Okay, so I taught a retreat last week that was all the teachings you need to get to the first stage of enlightenment. And this is a topic that we talked about yesterday at the very end of the retreat, of how to determine if you've actually attained the first stage of enlightenment, because there's a significant amount of teachings that you need to learn and develop and train your mind to get to that first stage of enlightenment. And getting to the first stage of enlightenment is very impactful, because once you get to the first stage of enlightenment, you've accomplished several benefits. Let me show you the benefits first of what you will have experienced by the time you get to the first stage of enlightenment. You will be fixed in the wholesome teachings, meaning that you will have seen significant progress to the condition of your mind, in the condition of your life. So you will be fixed in these wholesome teachings. You will know that it's these teachings that are leading to your enlightenment, because you will have seen significant improvement to the condition of your mind in your life, that you will see this significant reduction in discontentedness. So you'll know that it's these teachings that are leading to that particular mental state and improvement in your life and in your mind. One is incapable of decline, that you won't regress, that once your mind makes its way to that first stage of enlightenment and you're experiencing certain qualities of mindfulness and concentration, clarity of mind, you're having deeper memory, you're noticing a significant reduction of discontentedness. Once you get to that mental state, your mind won't regress backwards by the time you get to the first stage of enlightenment. Up to the first stage of enlightenment, your mind can easily regress backwards. But once you get to the first stage of enlightenment, your mind won't actually regress backwards. So that's one of the benefits of getting to the first stage of enlightenment. Another benefit is that your mind will experience this limited discontentedness. The discontentedness that's in the mind when you're in the first stage of enlightenment is just a fraction of what it once was. Whatever you experience when you're off the path to enlightenment in terms of anger and sadness and frustration and all those other discontent feelings, by the time you get to the first stage of enlightenment, it's a mere fraction of that. It's significantly reduced. Then another benefit is that you will have certain wisdom that is not shared by other people, meaning you will understand certain things about this world and these natural laws of existence that the Buddha taught that other people won't understand. And you don't think about this in terms of arrogance or ego or pride or boastfulness, that, oh, look at me, I know these things that other people don't know. Instead, the way that you understand this is that this will help you to bring in your loving kindness and compassion for other people, because you're going to notice that your friends and your family, your coworkers, they're going to be struggling with certain aspects of life that are very difficult and problematic for them. But to you, it's just so easy. It's so simple because you have certain wisdom that other people don't have. So when you see people struggling in the world and you understand that you have wisdom that they don't have, then you can arise loving kindness and compassion for them. Loving kindness is loving kindness is active goodwill for all beings and a genuine interest in seeing all beings be well. Compassion is concern for the misfortune of others. So when you see people struggling in the world and you know that you have wisdom that they don't have and you know how to overcome whatever challenge or struggle that they have, you can have active goodwill in this genuine interest in seeing them be well, which is loving kindness, and you can have this concern for their misfortune. And perhaps you offer them some suggestion or advice, and they may or may not be interested in hearing that advice. But at least you can maintain your loving kindness and compassion and understand that other people aren't going to have the same wisdom as you. If you go around the world thinking that everybody has the same wisdom as you, this would be problematic for you. So you're going to understand things about the world that others don't. Then another benefit is that you will have clearly seen causation. What this is referring to, by the way, these are the Buddha's words. What this is referring to is that you will understand the natural law of karma, of cause and effect, or action and result, the results of your decisions. Karma, it isn't mystical or magical. It's not a black cloud following you around. It's not punishments and rewards. There's no being that's controlling this natural law of karma, or some people call it karma. If this translated to just one English word, I would use the word that is in English, but the word karma and the word gamma, it's the same thing. It's just from different languages, Sanskrit versus Pali. The original teachings of the Buddha are in Pali, so I use the Pali word. But if it just translated to one English word, I would just use that word, but it doesn't. So I need to explain it as cause and effect, or action and result, the results of your decisions. So for example, if you're polite, kind, friendly, and respectful, people will tend to be polite, kind, friendly, respectful to you. That's your gamma. That is wholesome gamma based on wise decision making. You're making the wise decision to be polite, kind, friendly, and respectful. So therefore you experience wholesome gamma, or wholesome results. The wholesome results are based on your wise decisions. But when you make unwise decisions, you're going to experience unwholesome karma, right? This unwholesome results. So when you make the unwise decision to be impolite, unkind, unfriendly, and disrespectful, then you will experience unwholesome karma, unwholesome results. People are going to be impolite, unkind, unfriendly, and disrespectful to you, right? So that's the wholesome karma and unwholesome karma. When you make wise decisions, you're going to experience wholesome karma, or the wholesome results of your decisions. When you make unwise decisions, you're going to experience unwholesome karma, or the unwholesome results of your decisions, right? So you will have deeply learned by the time you get to the first stage of enlightenment, the natural law of Gama, and you will understand it quite well by the time you get to the first stage of enlightenment. And this is essentially what you're awakening to on the path to enlightenment, is you're awakening to this natural law of Gama, of this cause and effect or action and result, so that you can see this natural law very clearly. Because this natural law is affecting you, whether you're aware of it or not. Just like the natural law of gravity, it affected you, whether you're aware of it or not. When you were 2 years old, 3 years old, you were affected by the natural law of Gama. You didn't understand it. You were affected by the natural law of gravity. You didn't understand it. So you struggled. You had difficulties. You lacked wisdom. So you had difficulties about this natural law of gravity. You fell down, you hit your head, you bumped your elbow, you broke toys. You had all kinds of difficulties. You fell off your bicycle. But then slowly but surely you got wisdom. You gained wisdom of this natural law of gravity, and now you make wiser decisions. You tie your shoes tighter, you look at the surface of the street, you take your time when you walk, you do things differently based on the wisdom of the natural law of gravity. And now you don't struggle with the natural law of gravity anymore. You can climb ladders, you can ride bicycles, you can ride motorbikes. You fully awoke to the natural law of gravity. Well, this natural law of Gama is the same way. You need to fully awake to the natural law of Gama so that you can see this cause and effect, or this action and result, and now you can fully awake and make wise decisions that lead to only wholesome results. When you lack wisdom, like that dependent origination that we were looking at, when you lack wisdom, when you have ignorance or unknowing of true reality, you're going to make unwise decisions. Those volitional formations are going to be unwise, and it's going to lead to unwholesome results. But when you can not believe the teachings of the Buddha, when you learn them, when you reflect on them to independently verify them, and you practice them, you gain wisdom of this natural law, and now you're going to make wise decisions in the world. And now it's going to produce wholesome results for you. You'll choose to be polite, kind, friendly, and respectful to people because you like it when people are polite, kind, friendly, and respectful to you. Whatever you put out is going to come back to you. So slowly but surely you learn this natural law of Gama, and by the time you get to the first stage of enlightenment, you have clearly seen causation. You've clearly seen this natural law. Then one has clearly seen causally arisen objects. By the time you get to the first stage of enlightenment, you will have learned dependent origination, and you will understand it in detail. That's what the Buddha is sharing there. This last one is something that I've shared here, that by the time you get to the first stage of enlightenment, you will have everything you need to make your way to the fourth stage of enlightenment, where the mind is actually enlightened. So the first stage is just one step in the process of becoming enlightened. There's 4 stages of enlightenment. The mind isn't actually enlightened until you're in the 4th stage. And when your mind is in the 4th stage of enlightenment, this is where you've eliminated all discontentedness. There's no anger, sadness, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, boredom, loneliness, shyness, resentment, jealousy. Your mind is just always peaceful and always joyful. By the time you get to the 4th stage of enlightenment, you're enjoying life thoroughly. Life is at ease for you because you fully awoke to this natural law, and now you're making wise decisions in the world. So you'll have everything that you need in order to get to the 4th stage of enlightenment by the time you get to the first stage of enlightenment. So here's how you can determine if you've attained the first stage of enlightenment or not. You will have eliminated the first 3 fetters. These are the first 3 pollutions of mind. The Buddha discovered 10 individual pollutions. They're called the 10 fetters. A fetter is like a shackle and a chain and a ball around your ankle. And in ancient times, this is what kept prisoners trapped in a certain area. So these 10 fetters or these 10 pollutions are keeping the mind trapped in the unenlightened state. So what you're doing on the path to enlightenment is working to eliminate these 10 fetters or these 10 pollutions. And by the time you get to the first stage of enlightenment, you would have eliminated the first 3. And as part of this retreat, I taught the students what these fetters are. I taught them the symptoms that they're going to experience because of these fetters. I taught them the tools and techniques of how to eliminate these fetters. And then I taught them how to know when they've eliminated the fetters for each one of these 3. Then you will have deep understanding of dependent origination, the natural law of Gama, the 5 aggregates, and the 6 sense spaces. These are foundational teachings that are going to help you get into the first stage of enlightenment. They're foundational teachings for the first stage of enlightenment, right? But there's other teachings that you would need before this, like the 3 universal truths, the 4 noble truths, the Eightfold Path, the 5 precepts. These are all foundational teachings. But these teachings here are foundational teachings in order to get into the first stage of enlightenment. Then you will have established what's called accomplishment in view. This is certain things that the Buddha taught, that I taught during the retreat, that you would need to have accomplishment in view. You would also need to have accomplishment in generosity. This is being willing to give and share, that you will have eliminated selfishness by the time you get to the first stage of enlightenment. This is what's going to help you eliminate craving, desire, attachment. As long as you're selfish and you're just pursuing things out of your own self-interest, you're not going to be able to experience enlightenment. By the time you get to the first stage of enlightenment, you will be open-handed. You will have joy in giving and sharing. The mind will find that joyful. Then, by the time you get to the first stage of enlightenment, your discontentedness will be significantly reduced. Then you will also experience association with wholesome persons, that you will choose to make wise decisions about who you associate with, that you will know the natural law of karma, that it's unwise for you to associate with somebody who's into unwholesome things. So, for example, if I was a child growing up, and in my early childhood I had a really close friend, but now maybe by the age of 18 or 20, they're selling drugs, I would choose, if I'm associating with wholesome people, to no longer associate with that person, because it would be unwise for me. Because if we're out in the city walking around, maybe a rival drug dealer sees me hanging out with this person, they start shooting at this drug dealer who's my friend, who's been a friend since childhood, but I get killed. That would be very unwise for me to associate with someone who's into unwholesome things. Or let's just say we're driving down the street in a car, the police pull us over, and my friend has drugs in his pocket, and now he slips it under the chair of my seat in the car, and now the police search the car. I'm going to jail. So it would be unwise to associate with somebody who's into unwholesome things. So you can do that without judgment, that you don't need to judge the other person and look down on them, but you can just make choices to now move on and choose to no longer associate with wholesome people. Let me finish all of this and then I'll open up to questions. One of the other determining factors of whether you get to the first stage of enlightenment or not is that you'll hear the true teachings, meaning that you'll have the original words of the Buddha and you'll be able to hear the true teachings of what actually leads to enlightenment. You guys have the true teachings available to you in all these books. These are the words of the Buddha that will lead to your enlightenment, and you're able to learn and grow and develop and understand that. Then by the time you get to the first stage of enlightenment, you will have careful attention. This is that you'll pay close attention to the individual decisions that you make. Before the first stage of enlightenment, you might just be haphazardly making decisions. Maybe if you're off the path to enlightenment, you don't have any wisdom to base your decisions in. So you're just haphazardly making unwise decisions. You're not really thinking through your decisions. But by the time you get to the first stage of enlightenment, because you understand the natural law of karma, you will carefully make decisions. You will consider certain aspects before you make any particular decision. You will make wise decisions. You won't just rush through a bunch of decisions. When you have craving, desire, attachment, you're going to try to hurry up and make rapid decisions because you're trying to hurry up and get to those pleasant feelings. You're trying to get your cravings fulfilled. But when you throttle back your craving and you pull that back with an understanding of the natural law of karma, you'll know that it's unwise to hurry up and make rapid decisions, that you should just pay careful attention and slowly but surely think through all your decisions. And that's what the Buddha is sharing here, that by the time you get to the first stage of enlightenment, you will carefully think through any decisions that you make, because any decision you make, it's going to produce an outcome. There's going to be an effect. There's cause and there's an effect. There's action and there's result. So if you think through your decisions, you will come to a wise decision. Where if you don't have careful attention, you will make haphazard decisions that lead to unwholesome results. By the time you get to the first stage of enlightenment, you will be practicing in accordance with the teachings, that you will have learned the Eightfold Path, you will learn the 5 precepts, you'll learn the moral conduct, the meditation. You'll be practicing based on the teachings, and you will be actively training your mind. Then the last thing that the Buddha shares about someone who gets to the first stage of enlightenment is that you will maintain bodily, verbal, and mental acts of loving kindness. That is the genuine interest in seeing all beings be well, active goodwill, both in public and private, towards companions on the path to enlightenment. That means your fellow community members. We have thousands and thousands of people that learn with me, even though there's 4 of you guys here and several of you guys online. There's thousands of people that are learning with me, and these are your companions in this journey to enlightenment, companions on this path to enlightenment. And the Buddha says that by the time you are in the first stage of enlightenment, that you will have loving kindness both in your bodily, your verbal, and your mental conduct. The opposite of loving kindness would be inner hate or anger or hostility or bitterness, right? So by the time you get to the first stage of enlightenment, the mind still has some ill will, but the Buddha is saying in terms of the people that you relate to around you in your community of where you're growing and learning to get to enlightenment, that by the time you get to the first stage of enlightenment, you would have loving kindness for the people within this community, because you know that it was this community that helped you to get to that first stage of enlightenment, and you're already seeing a significant reduction in the discontentedness, and you will have appreciation and gratitude for the people in the community that are helping you to get to that first stage of enlightenment. So do you guys have any questions on this? Yep, go ahead.
Just 2 questions. One is how to eliminate doubt, because you mentioned it as one of the 3 first feathers, especially for a scientist.
Sure. The way you eliminate doubt is the doubt that we're talking about here is doubt about the teachings of the Buddha. And the way that you eliminate it is through investigating the teachings, through examining them, through reflecting on them to independently verify them, and then to practice them. So if you can investigate the teachings through learning, through reflecting to independently verify and practice, and you're training your mind, as you're reducing the pollution in your mind, you're going to see more and more qualities of enlightenment shining through. You'll start seeing more brightness and more radiance, more brilliance shining through. The mind brightens up. You start enjoying life so much more in the enlightened mental state than you did in the unenlightened mental state. You'll get to the point where you have no doubt that these teachings are leading to an improved condition of your mind, an improved condition of your life. You won't be enlightened yet by the time you eliminate doubt, but you'll have seen enough progress and improvement to your mind and your life that you'll have no doubt that these teachings are helping you. And it's just a matter of continuing to learn them and continuing to progress on the path. So the doubt that we're talking about here is doubt about the teachings of the Buddha, doubt about him, about your teacher, about your own ability to attain enlightenment, about the community. So the opposite of doubt is confidence. So you'll have confidence in the Buddha, you'll have confidence in his teachings, you'll have confidence in the community that you're part of, you'll have confidence in your teacher, and you'll have confidence in your own ability to attain enlightenment because you will have investigated the teachings to a certain degree. You would have reflected on them to a certain degree, and you would be practicing them to a certain degree that you would see this improvement to the condition of your mind. So therefore, you know that these teachings are leading to an improved life, an improved condition of mind. So you will get to a point where you have no doubt. You won't be enlightened yet, but you'll have no doubt that these teachings are helping you in improving your life and the condition of your mind.
Thank you. Second and last question is about not associating with the wholesome. When is it our duty to help the less wise, as you mentioned before, remember? And now you say we should dissociate from the people who could bring us down.
Yeah, so there's no responsibility or requirement for you to educate someone who's unwise. The only situation where it would be wise for you to help somebody is when that person is open to learning. If they've asked you for advice, if they're asking for your suggestion, if they're asking for guidance, that's when you help somebody. You can offer, right? You can say, Mom, I notice you're really struggling with that. Would you like some help? And if she says yes, okay, you help her. If she says, no, I don't need your help, I don't want your help, then you can't help her. There's no way that somebody can learn and grow and develop if they're not interested in it. So you can take the active role to suggest and advise, but only if the person's open to it. So if they're soliciting your input and asking you, okay, you can help them. But if they're not soliciting your input, you could suggest, but you need to ask them, would you like my advice? And if they say yes, okay, you help them. And if they say no, you have to let go. If you don't have craving, then you should be completely fine. You should be peaceful. But if you have a craving to help mom and she says no, you'll experience sadness because you have a craving. But if you don't have a craving, then if she says no, then you're fine. Okay, mom, be well. She's going to make an unwise decision. She's going to experience unwholesome results, but that's her karma. That's the results of her decisions. You tried to help her. You can't rush into somebody's life and fix them. They have to choose to cultivate the wisdom on their own.
I think my question was pretty much this, like how to, display loving kindness for people that, we can potentially like judge them as unwholesome associations.
There are skillful ways to teach somebody without them realizing what you're doing. But that comes with a lot more practice. You guys are going to need to learn the wisdom of the teachings first. And then once you learn all of that and your mind's getting closer and closer to enlightenment, then that's a good time to learn the skillful ways to help people. This is how I helped my son. This is how I helped my wife, that I was able to help them without actively teaching them. With my son, I've actively taught him because he's open to learning. With my wife, she's not typically open to learning with me. So I needed to skillfully help her with several things along the way. And this comes with more wisdom and more practice. So once you gain the wisdom yourself, if you'd like to help your mom and your dad and your brothers and your sisters, the Buddha says that we can make efforts to help others. But if you're going to do it in a skillful way, you're going to need to first have the wisdom yourself. And then I can teach you this other skill of how to skillfully help people. But at the beginning, just focus on your own learning and your own development, because without that wisdom, you can't ever get to the next piece. Okay. I don't see any questions from Keely. Let me see if we have any questions on Facebook or YouTube. Looks like, let's see, we have some question here from Tonka. Looks like many couples have trouble getting pregnant nowadays. Any ideas why that could be, considering the teachings? I would suspect that cause of that is because of stress. I know that when I was in my first marriage, my wife was interested in getting pregnant and she could never get pregnant. And I suspect it was because she was very stressed. She was very stressful. And I suspect that nowadays, with people not understanding craving, anger, and ignorance, and the mind of humanity becoming more and more deteriorated, that there's so much stress and anxiety in the world that people are probably having trouble having children because of that. That would be my thought. Doctors and researchers and scientists would be much better educated to explain something like that, but that would be my thought based on the teachings. Let's see if we have any questions on Facebook. Thank you, Tonka, for your question. Let's see. Okay, that's all the questions we have online right now. Okay, so now let's see what else we have here. So attainment of the first stage of enlightenment as a stream enterer means the mind will no longer regress. This is just kind of a summary for you. The being will no longer be reborn in the lower realms. By the time you get to the first stage of enlightenment, you're no longer going to be reborn into the realm of hell, the animal realm, or afflicted spirits. So getting to that first stage of enlightenment is very crucial, because if you die in that stage of enlightenment, you're going to come back into the human world. The ultimate goal is to get to enlightenment and not be reborn anywhere at all. But if you die in the first stage of enlightenment, at least you're not going to go down to the lower realms. You'll come back into the human realm. But the goal is to get to enlightenment and not be experiencing rebirth anywhere. If you die in the first stage of enlightenment, you will experience a maximum of 7 rebirths. You won't experience an 8th existence. We call the first stage of enlightenment a stream enterer. The reason why is because once you get to the first stage of enlightenment, you've entered the stream. And just like a log enters the stream and it's going to eventually get to the ocean, it's just a matter of time. The log's going to get to the ocean. The same thing is once you get to the first stage of enlightenment, you're going to get to enlightenment. It's just a matter of time, either in this life or some subsequent life, a maximum of 7. The Buddha talks about this, that once you get to the first stage of enlightenment, you're fixed in destination with enlightenment as your goal. You will get to enlightenment, either in this life or some future life, once you get to the first stage of enlightenment. You may have been in the first stage of enlightenment in a previous life. You don't know right now necessarily if you haven't observed your past lives. So you may have been reborn into this life, and maybe now this is your opportunity to get to enlightenment. So take advantage of it. This is an ideal existence to be able to get to enlightenment. Okay, so that's everything that I shared, Keely, on that particular topic. If you have questions, you're welcome to let me know. After this, what I did at the retreat is I just shared with students how to get continued support, which I think you know, but maybe the people online and the people here, you guys don't know that there's books, audiobooks, videos, podcasts, quizzes. You can access all of this from our website. You can take courses and classes and retreats either in person here in Chiang Mai or online. I teach in the mornings like this from the temple, and then in the evening I go home and I live stream from home and I teach online. So no matter where you are in the world, you should be able to get a live class. I'm teaching at either 9 a.m. or 9 p.m., either in the morning or in the evening. And you can access all of that from our website. Then we have 2 ongoing programs that are both in person and online. We have the group learning program, which meets each Sunday and Wednesday at 9 a.m. and 9 p.m., either here at the temple or from my home, and I live stream both of those. And then there's the Pali Canon and English study group, which is meeting on Saturdays. The group learning program, it takes the first book and we go chapter by chapter. It's a 7-month program, and I go each chapter by chapter each Sunday. And then on Wednesday, we do meditation together, and I open up to any and all questions that you guys have. The Saturday class, the Pali Canon and English study group, I go volumes 2 through 13. It takes a year and a half to go through that entire program. And this is a program that really helps you to fill things in, where the group learning program is like a foundation and it sets up a framework for you, where the Pali Canon in English kind of fills that in and gives you much more detail from the original words of the Buddha. And then in addition to all these books and audiobooks, videos, podcasts, quizzes, classes, courses, retreats, both in person and online, these ongoing programs, I also offer personal guidance where you can schedule time with me either in person, wherever I am, either here in Chiang Mai or anywhere else, or online. You can schedule online and we can meet in Zoom 101, because it's one thing to learn in class, but it's a whole other thing to talk about the private things that you would like to talk about and relating these teachings directly to a certain situation. So if you're having trouble with your mom or your boss or your brothers, your sister, your life partner, your children, if you're having difficulties making career decisions or anything going on in your life, you can reach out to somebody and I'm here to help you. I won't tell you what to do. I'll just listen to you and understand what it is that you're struggling with, and then I will share teachings of the Buddha with you, and then you make whatever decision you think is best for you. So there's an unlimited number of these. You can just schedule them online. From our website, there's a app that you can schedule them through, or if you're here in Chiang Mai and you'd like to meet, you can just send me a message or talk to me here in class, and then I will set up a time. You can set up a time with me where we meet either at the temple or at a restaurant or at a park or wherever it is that you'd like to meet. And then we have this Facebook group where you can get help there as well. There's about 16,000 people in there. They post questions and then I answer their questions. I'm the only one who answers the questions. And it's kind of like an online classroom that you can post questions and get help yourself, but you can also learn from other people's questions too. That when you see people ask questions, you can read the answer that I've given them, and then it'll help you learn as well. So you can use this Facebook group because I live stream into that. I also put posts in there of things that you can learn. So you can get help through asking questions in class, through asking questions in the Facebook group, by sending me a private message, or by scheduling personal guidance with me, and I'll help you. These are the 4 ways that you can get help. And all of it's offered openly and freely to all beings, that you can receive all this guidance and all this help without any expectation of anything in return. I'm just here to help you. Okay? So any questions on anything that I've shared? Anything you guys would like to ask about? No? Okay. Has everyone learned a little something today? Got something that was helpful for you? Yeah? Okay. All right. So what I'll do then is just end class here by thanking all of you guys for joining for today's class, and wish you very well for your rest of your day. Whatever you decide to do, have a really enjoyable time, very fun time. And as you'd like to come back here, either on Sunday, Wednesday, or Saturday, we have regular classes here. Tomorrow in our group learning program, starting at 9 o'clock, I'm going to be teaching chapter 20 of volume 1. Chapter 20 is titled Animal to Human, the Evolution of Our Consciousness. This is where you're going to learn about how human beings mostly have been reborn out of the animal world. And now as an unenlightened human being, your mind has certain conditions from your animal existences where the mind, even though you're a human being, the mind oftentimes functions very much like an animal. And understanding that, you can start identifying the characteristics that are more animalistic, and you can start shedding those characteristics, becoming a better and better human being. That's essentially what the path to enlightenment is cultivating wisdom to become a better and better human being. But understanding these animalistic tendencies and instincts will be able to help you shed those and become a better and better human being. So I'm going to be talking about that tomorrow to help you understand the 5 realms of existence and a little bit about the cycle of rebirth as well. And then on Wednesday, we're going to be doing meditation together, and then I'll just open up to any and all questions that you guys have. So thank you all for joining, either here at the temple or those of you guys online, and perhaps we'll see you guys in a future class. Have a wonderful and lovely rest of your day. Sawadee khap, sawadee khap, sawadee khap.
Thank you again for watching. Enjoy your meditation. Look forward to seeing you online and answering any questions that you might have. Thank you so much.